But hey, that's just the way I see it. What up, y'all? My name's Elijah. Welcome to The Way I See It. And just like the intro says, today we're reacting to some of the most interesting takes on Bleacher Report. But just before that, I have a Bible verse that I need to throw your way. 1 John 4:7-8 says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love." Now, what this Bible verse means is that God is the very definition of love. And when we strive to be like God, it means we must show love to others, no matter what their opinions are. It's okay to think differently than someone else, but it doesn't mean we get to berate them because of their different opinions. Now, if you don't know what Bleacher Report is, it's basically an app made for the average sports fan to stay up to date on everything happening in the sports world. Nearly every sport you can think of is on it, from soccer to rugby to lacrosse to basketball, football, and so much more. It doesn't matter what your taste is. If it's a recognized sport, it's probably on the app. Bleacher Report also gives you the ability to connect and interact with other fans of your given sport or team. Bleacher Report gives fans a voice. And because of that, sometimes you may not always agree with what you hear. Just like with this first take. This first take is a collection of posts and comments that I've seen on Bleacher Report about Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. If you followed the NFL, I guess, through the months of November and December, then you would know that starting back when the Ravens played the Dolphins, Lamar Jackson went through arguably the worst stretch of his career. In the 3 full games he played before his injury, he went 1-2 and had 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Now, because of that, a lot of misplaced intrigue started to surround the second string Ravens QB, Tyler Huntley. After Lamar got injured, Tyler Huntley stepped in and looked good, finishing the game with 270 passing yards and 1 touchdown, but more importantly, no turnovers. And in the next game against the Packers, Tyler Huntley went toe-to-toe with Packers legend Aaron Rodgers, falling just short in the closing minutes of the game when, after scoring a late touchdown, Ravens coach John Harbaugh elected to go for 2 points to try to win the game.
Now we can kick this and go to overtime and we're in good shape. Or we try to win it here, then we just try to keep them out of field goal range. What do you want to do? We can go into overtime right here, or we can go for it. You want to try it? All right, let's try it.
Huntley. Pass is broken up.
The attempt was ultimately unsuccessful, and the Ravens lost a gut-wrenching game 31-30. Now, in that game, Tyler Huntley became the first Ravens QB ever to rush for 2 touchdowns in the game and throw for 2 touchdowns in the same game, something Lamar Jackson has never done. And because of that, it seemed like after that game, the collective NFL fans and media and just anyone associated with the NFL, it honestly seemed like everyone lost their mind. Oh, Tyler Huntley is Lamar 2.0. Huntley is a better passer than Lamar. Huntley and Lamar are the same player. Lamar is going to get traded. You have a better chance of making the playoffs with Huntley starting than Lamar. And 97 people agreed with that. I mean, there were definitely your standard running back jokes, but it really seemed like fans were determined to let a 3-game stretch define Lamar Jackson's career. Now, before I begin with my rebuttal of why Tyler Huntley isn't a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson, I want to say that in no way is this a Tyler Huntley diss. I genuinely do believe that Tyler Huntley is a good quarterback, and I believe that he has a bright future in the NFL. But he's not Lamar Jackson, and the numbers themselves back that up. This season, Lamar Jackson went 7-4 as a starter with one of the most injured rosters in the league. In the games Tyler Huntley started or took most of the snaps in, he went 1-4. During those 5 games, he threw for 1,081 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions with a 65% completion percentage. Now, in the 11 games that Lamar Jackson played in, he threw for 2,865 yards, 16 touchdowns to 13 interceptions with a 64.5 completion percentage. Lamar Jackson had better numbers than Tyler Huntley in yards per attempt, yards per completion, yards per game, and QB rating. In my opinion, I feel like those statistics alone should end this whole argument. I mean, Lamar Jackson has better passing stats than Tyler Huntley in almost every statistical category. And it's not just because he started, because Tyler Huntley had substantial time playing. It's just that when he did play, Lamar Jackson put up better numbers. But everyone knows that numbers don't always tell the whole story. Easy to say that the Ravens lost 4 out of their last 5 games with Tyler Huntley at the helm, but what the numbers do not tell you is that he was often the reason why the Ravens were even in the game sometimes. Now, 4 of the 5 losses that they suffered under Tyler Huntley were by 3 points or less against some of the NFL's elite teams, such as the Rams and the Packers, with the only loss by more than 3 points being against the Bengals when Josh Johnson was actually the quarterback because Tyler had COVID. And I mean, yeah, it's easy to say that Lamar Jackson threw almost as many interceptions as he did touchdowns this season, but what the numbers won't tell you, what looking at the numbers alone will not tell you, is that Hollywood Brown dropped at least 3 touchdowns against the Lions way back when the Ravens played the Lions in September. So that alone, those 3 extra touchdowns, that's 19 touchdowns to now 13 interceptions. What the numbers are not going to tell you is that Lamar Jackson at one point in the season was on pace to throw for 4,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards in the same season. He was the MVP frontrunner for like 2 weeks. I mean, he had people in the media saying things like this.
Lamar Jackson is not only the most valuable player in the NFL, he's the best player in the NFL because every team that walks into that stadium knows that they have to stop Lamar Jackson in order to beat the Ravens, and can't nobody do it, y'all. So at some point, we got to acknowledge the fact that this dude, the best football player in the NFL, beyond the MVP. We know he's the most valuable player because his team ain't winning without him. But the best player too, Dan, no one can do anything with him.
I mean, but hey, maybe Marcus Spears isn't enough to convince you. So let's compare Lamar Jackson's best game to Tyler Huntley's best game. Tyler Huntley's best game this year was by far the game against the Packers. In that game, he accounted for 288 total yards, 4 touchdowns, and no turnovers. Now, he had a great game being patient in the pocket, running when necessary, passing with poise, often getting the ball to his best offensive weapon, tight end Mark Andrews, who had a monster game with 10 receptions, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But it was not all rose petals. There were times in that game where Tyler Huntley showed his inexperience, but none stands out more than the failed 2-point conversion that could have potentially put the Ravens up 1 with a minute to go. It was a designed rollout play. Marquise Brown was wide open in the middle of the field, but it was clear from the beginning that Tyler Huntley was looking for Mark Andrews the whole time. His tunnel vision cost the Ravens 2 points. Now, he's far from the reason why they lost that game, but you can't help but wonder what might have been had Tyler Huntley seen Marquise Brown running free over the middle. Lamar Jackson's best game of the season was during the beginning of his short-lived MVP hype when the Baltimore Ravens hosted a then 1-4 Colts team on Monday Night Football, down 22-3 in the third quarter with 2 minutes left. I mean, I'm pretty sure most fans probably thought it was over. And then Lamar Jackson took over. It started with back-to-back touchdown drives, but to Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown, and then a blocked field goal by Calais Campbell and a game-time touchdown and 2-point conversion to send the game into overtime. The Ravens won the coin toss. They went right down the field, and they won the game 31-25. Now, Lamar Jackson finished the game with 4 touchdowns, 442 yards passing, 62 rushing yards, and an 86% completion percentage. Not only did Lamar get the win, but he carried the team on his back. His 504 total yards was literally 96% of the Ravens' offense, and just 9 yards short of the Colts' total offensive output. They had 513 yards. He also became the first player in NFL history to have at least an 85% completion percentage with at least 40 pass attempts, the first to complete at least 85% of his passes in a 400-yard pass game, and the first to have 400 passing yards, at least 15 rushing yards, and no interceptions in that game. But more importantly than all of that, in my opinion, he actually won the game. I mean, numbers are great, but they don't really mean anything if you don't win the game. I mean, Tyler Huntley was the first quarterback to put up 2 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns in the same game, but they lost the game, so those stats are meaningless. And I think ultimately that's the real difference between Tyler Huntley and Lamar Jackson. When Lamar Jackson was called upon to make play after play after play after play in that Colts game, he stepped up every single time. Tyler Huntley stepped up when he was called upon, but in the biggest moment of that game, he had tunnel vision. And I think that's what the real difference is. Lamar Jackson got the job done when needed. Tyler Huntley, well, he didn't. This second take that we're looking at is it's a budding narrative that I don't really think it's gonna gain. I don't really think it has much steam, but I've seen enough of it on Bleacher Report to where I decided to address it. Plus, I think it's hilarious because it's super easy. But anyway, it's about LeBron James. Everything gets dicey when you mention LeBron James. Now, I do realize that the Lakers haven't been having a good year this year. As a genuine Russell Westbrook fan, it really pains me to see. I was so excited when I learned that Russell Westbrook and LeBron James were going to be teaming up. I was so ecstatic for that. I didn't know how it was going to work because I'm like, their play styles are too similar in some aspects. Like, so how is that gonna work? Russ isn't a shooter. How's floor spacing gonna Anthony Davis? I didn't know how it was gonna work. This team had like such astronomical hopes coming into the season, and technically those hopes are still there, but it's not looking good right now, and thus these takes were born. Trade LeBron. It's the only way. Get rid of Bron Phoney. He's the real problem. Always has been. That's why Riley got rid of him. LeBron is a team killer. The absolute worst. Dude has no loyalty. I get the trade Russell Westbrook talk. I get that. You know, Russell Westbrook hasn't been having a great season. Trade him, but he's dang near untradeable because he has like $50 million on his contract. I sort of understand the fire Frank Vogel talk. I mean, he's a defensive coach. Their defense has been bad. I get it. I even sort of understand the trade Anthony Davis talk. I don't like any of that talk, but I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, any of those arguments, if you presented me with any of those arguments, I could stomach that. And I would sit here and listen to you and be like, okay. But when you tell me that you want to trade trade LeBron. I mean, I get being angry as a fan, but quite honestly, LeBron James is the only reason why, number one, your franchise is still relevant right now. I get that it's the Lakers, but I'm just saying, if LeBron was on the team, there's no way we would be talking about the Lakers that much. So yes, LeBron James, number one, is the reason why your franchise is still relevant right now. And number two is the reason why the Lakers are still in the playoff race. History shows us that a LeBron James-led team is literally never out of it. Are the Lakers a great team? No. Is Russell Westbrook struggling mightily this year? Unfortunately. Does LeBron James hold some of the blame for assembling said Lakers team and bringing Russell Westbrook into the fold? Yes, he does. But if the Lakers make the playoffs, will it mainly be because of the contributions from a LeBron James? Yes. All of these things can be true. I mean, let's take 2017 for example. Right. LeBron James led a Cavs team to the NBA Finals with a roster that without LeBron arguably would not have made the playoffs. But when the playoffs started, LeBron James put the team on his back, having one of the single greatest playoff stretches by any player regardless of age, literally ever. He led the entire league in the playoffs with points per game, the amount of points made, total number of assists, minutes played, free throws made by any player, and player efficiency, while averaging 34 points a game, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists a game, while shooting 54% from the field. And in the finals, he averaged 34, 8, and 10. But more impressively than that, he came within a missed George Hill free throw and an incredible lack of awareness by J.R. Smith from taking game 1 from arguably the greatest team ever assembled. I mean, think about who's on that Warriors team. You had Steph, you had KD, Klay Thompson. I mean, come on. Steph and KD, you could make the argument are both top 10 players all the time. Now, would I have Steph Curry top 10 all the time? Maybe. Would I have KD top 10 all the time? Maybe. The fact that you can even make that argument and they were on the same team when they're both like playing incredibly well is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And LeBron James almost won that game, but J.R. Smith forgot what the score was and George Hill missed the free throw. What's my point? The point is, LeBron had 51 points in that game. He had 51 points. 51 points. What's my point? The point is, a LeBron James led team is never out of it. Ever. So I get being upset. I understand being upset. I get being angry, but we are not trading the greatest player in the game today. That is not how you fix your team. Oh, and by the way, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd sub to the channel. This particular take that we're coming up with, it's my favorite, to be honest, because it doesn't come from the comments. Now, this story was trending all over the sports world. It's about Kyrie Irving. I know you've heard it. NBA champion and Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups raised eyebrows after he made these comments about Kyrie Irving at a press conference before a Monday night game against Irving's Brooklyn Nets. He said, and I quote, "I personally think, as someone who played the position, I think Kyrie is the most skilled player that's ever played the position. Just straight skill, nothing else, just straight skill." Now, because of the title of this video, you're probably going to assume that I disagree with that take, and you'd be right. Kyrie Irving is an amazing player. He's an amazing player. He's absolutely an amazing player. I genuinely think if he keeps playing like this, he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, he's that good. He's that good. I really do. I do believe that Kyrie Irving will be a Hall of Famer. But regardless of any of that, I do not think that Kyrie Irving is the most skilled point guard of all time. I wanted to be as accurate as possible when I refuted this claim, so I went to the dictionary and I looked up the actual definition of skill. Skill literally means the ability to do something well. Then I looked up the word skilled with ED, which was the actual word that was used, by the way. The word skilled means having or showing knowledge, ability, or training to perform a certain activity or task well. Now, based on the literal definition of skill, would you have Kyrie as your most skilled point guard ever? I wouldn't, personally. Now, I know that if I ask this question to the older crowd, they might point to Magic or Isaiah or maybe even AI or John Stockton or something like that. But personally, I wasn't alive. My the player I think who's most talented point guard of all time is Wardell Stephen Curry II. I have never seen anyone play with so much chaos but be so in control at the same time. His all-time great shooting ability is what makes him a household name, but what isn't talked about enough is how great he is at literally everything else. His ability to move without the ball is unmatched by any player in the game today. And when he does have the ball, he's a willing passer, averaging 7 assists for his career compared to Kyrie's 6. And I realize that most people would also assume that Kyrie is a better overall scorer than Steph, but I disagree with that too. Not only is his career 3-point percentage 42% compared to Kyrie's 39%, but Curry also has a career higher 2-point shooting percentage, a higher free throw shooting percentage, and he's averaged more points a game for his career as well. Kyrie may be more crafty with his unreal handle and his penchant for hitting difficult shots, but the object of the game is to score more points than your opponent. And in nearly every statistical category, Steph Curry is just a either better or more efficient scorer than Kyrie. Neither are going to give you a ton of rebounds, but even Steph Curry edges him out in that too, averaging about 4.5 rebounds to Irving's 4. I realize that there are other point guards throughout NBA history that have a legit claim to the title of most skilled ever. I mean, you could say Magic was a better passer and rebounder than both. Steve Nash and Jason Kidd were both joys to watch with the ball in their hands. Allen Iverson was Kyrie Irving before Kyrie Irving was Kyrie Irving. And Russell Westbrook makes averaging 10 rebounds a game as a point guard look like dang near normal. But in my opinion, I've never seen a player personify what it means to play the one position better than Steph Curry. He's the most skilled point guard of all time. This final take is back in the comments. We're back in the comments again. It comes from one of the biggest NFL communities on Bleacher Report, and it's not even really that surprising who it is. It's the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have about 2.5 million fans in their NFL community, which I think is really cool, to be honest. And it's also like not surprising at all. Obviously, I just want to say that there's obviously more fans in real life than what they are on Bleacher Report. I only use the terminology fans because that's actually what's used in the Bleacher Report app. Personally, I would have used the term member. I would have been like, there's 2.1 million members in Patriots community, because I feel like that just makes more sense. But anyway, we're getting off topic. Anyway, when I was scrolling through the Cowboys community tab, and I saw one particular take that sounded smart, but I feel like when you really start to squint at it, then you realize it doesn't make a ton of sense. A user said, Kellen fooled us because his play calls were not generic like Garrett's, but now they're playing chess on a checkers board. I haven't followed the Cowboys enough to determine how accurate that statement is. You know what I'm saying? But I guess that wasn't really the problem that I had with his take anyway. I mean, I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying about Kellen Moore making the Cowboys offense too complicated. But like I said, I haven't followed the Cowboys enough to know if that's accurate or not. But I get what he's saying. But I guess my only problem with this take was a checker. He's playing chess with a checkers board. A checkers board and they're the same. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like. And if you agreed or disagreed with any part of this video, leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. Any feedback is greatly appreciated, to be honest with you. And with all that being said, please remember that Jesus loves you. This has been The Way I See It. Have a nice day, y'all.